alongside each other, and which I don't think is a good thing. Like we can have a like collapse menu bar. So that's what I've implemented here. And that was it. That was it. I think there should be. And yep, so like in the original we have all these stacked upon one another, so I've changed the settings, so we have an collapse navbar here. So like, okay, one can collapse it and go to other page, and that was pretty much it. For like, it's given better experience for the mobile users. So this one was
yeah, I think this looks great. The collapse thing is cool.
Yep, so that's pretty much for this PR.
Okay, so Lee has joined us, so you can go ahead with the quiz as well. I'll take up the other topics later.
Okay. So for example, as many of them know, like we are planning to add many features inside the learning paths. So one of those was to add quiz. So this is the one. Like for now, we don't have any backend, so it's just a front end part. Later we can add the backend. So for example, when assuming user completes his learning path course, he will be able to take the quiz from this button. And then after taking the quiz, then he will be redirected to a login form where the user has to add his user credentials. And when he enters his credentials, for now, since we don't have any backend, we are just going with the test data. So like any further test data, and the user can then validate. And after validating user, there are some quiz introductions, and then the quiz start. So this is the quiz model. There we have attempted questions and the questions which are still pending. And once user completes the quiz, he will be able to see his result. And if he passes, then we can give his certificate. So that was pretty much it.
I can see how excited Lee is, so I'll just let him speak first.
It's hard to contain my excitement. Yeah. So good. So by the way, Mr. Sharma, I don't know. I'm not sure if have you been on webcam before? Like, I'm trying to remember.
No. Actually, okay, I thought like if I'm coming back, I should level up the game.
Yeah. Start it out. Yeah. That's good. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, this is well, Nikhil, it's great, man. It's great that you just took initiative and put it together. Like, how many quizzes have you taken in your life online? More than I can count, I'm sure, right? Like, it doesn't, so you know what the experience is like, and there's a few different variations, but you put one together, and yeah, you're precisely right. Like that type of user experience, the flow that they would have, the actual putting together of the pages and the interactions, most of it, like you've just proven, it can be done without the backend. You don't have to have it. You can mock stuff up. You can use a fake piece of JSON or what, like some response that you might need to use, but you can, all of that can be filled in later. So it's a great example, I think, for everybody else that's on the call or everyone else that might come later, to just highlight the fact that those two don't have to wait on each other. You don't have to first agree upon what the exchange will be, what the XML or the JSON or the request and response precisely will be. It's like, look, if let's say that the responses included a bunch more information than you had displayed, well, one, it didn't really matter. You don't need that extra info. Two, if it was formatted different than what you have right now, it's very easy for you to change it around to just update to account for the front end. So Anyway, my point is like, it's exciting that you took the initiative because you didn't need to wait. And you know what, unless some of the rest of us are super picky, it kind of doesn't matter that much about whether like exactly how the quiz works, I guess is what I'm saying. Like one thing we want to, well, yeah, good. So there's a couple of other quizzes that are relevant to what we're doing that are aimed really at the same technologies, at the same, at a similar certificate that would be good for you to digest, just to get a sense of what the style of questions and the style of interaction that people are accustomed to, just as inspiration or as food for thought. But otherwise, yeah, so there's another, so you actually worked on this before as well. So by the way, Nikhil, it's time for that internship. Like it's been a long time. Like it's something I want to talk to you about after this. So you also had a mock-up on Meshry Cloud where people would authenticate and sign in, and which is pretty, by the way, but more than that, the back end, okay, so how do I say this? The front end to the back end also needs updated, or rather where people authenticate and sign in, they don't really have many controls over their changing their password or resetting their, or changing their email address, resetting their password. Yeah. So, so great, good. I think you just made it a real thing, like the second phase of the learning path. Yeah, let's do it. Let's. So the screen recording that you just showed, do we? Is that posted somewhere? It's probably on a PR somewhere.
Yep, actually, I think the preview build is there. There it is.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yep.
Nice, good. I'll follow up. Do other people have feedback on any of the specifics, some of the steps that are involved? So you had this concept of attempts in there. Was that attempts per question or attempts for the whole thing?
Per question.
Okay.
Yeah.
And thus far, I think what you were showing, it was either a multiple choice or like a multi-answer.
Yep, kind of.
Okay.
Actually, I just like take the initiative to build the basic stuff so we can brainstorm another ideas and then implement those. So for now, we just
yeah. One idea is that we have these labs, these based on Katacoda that people can go in and take. You're familiar with them. And so a potential thing to do is the labs are live environments. So if if one of the questions isn't, if we're trying to make it a little more difficult than just simple, multiple choice, that we might say, hey, okay, here's question 5. It's basically a lab. So you follow and execute the lab. And if you perform the lab correctly, then you answer the question below. And so I'm just kind of brainstorming aloud about, how to.
Yep, that might be a better idea.
Nice. Okay.
That's something I did in one Google Cloud course. Something like basically what they do is they track what you do on the cloud. That's what you say. Like,
oh, okay. Hey, that's another good point. That so that's slightly different than what I just said, which is a little more secure, a little potentially a little more like people can go around sharing the answers if it's very obvious, like what that last answer is. Yeah, if people are doing something unique to their environment, but from within the environment, Devapriya, that if they're performing part of the task, they get to a certain point and they have to upload some results that only they could have produced because only they got to the end, and then only they would have. It's a good idea. this plays into the service mesh playground, by the way, because what we have limited capability inside of Katacoda. They only let you do so much in there, which makes sense, because otherwise there'd be a lot of crypto that's mined from within those labs probably. So if we end up with the service mesh playground, which would be a hosted instance of Meshery, that can be used for people to execute their labs. That's actually what the playground is for people to go learn about service meshes. If they're learning and certifying in the same place, great. Microsoft has given us 10,000 credits to use their cloud. That might be a place to host this Meshery instance, which means we have to learn Azure. I don't want to. I don't want to go near Windows. Okay. Nikhil, you're running Windows, I think, right? Is that right?
No, actually, I'm using Linux.
Oh, you are? Okay. All right. We're still friends. We're still okay. All right. Okay.
Before sharing the screen, I knew it. So.
Okay. Oh, great. Okay. Good. I think I'm awake now. So back to you, Deborah.
One more question. So the login page that comes after you've completed the course, like shouldn't we have that before you start the course so that you can like keep track of what you do?
No, actually, for example, like if someone has completed the course, so he will redirect it to this page where he can click on the take quiz button. And if he is already logged in, then he won't see the login form. Otherwise, the next step would be the login form. And then after that, we have the quiz part.
Okay, got it.
So yeah, that's pretty much it from my side.
So another thing is, if we are moving forward with this, so we would have to collaborate, right? It's not going to be a one-person job. So how do you think we should move forward with it? Like, since we can't perform anything on it right now, we can't merge it. So what do you think we should do? Maybe just remove the take quiz button and let the rest of it be there.
Does that make sense, Nikhil? So if you've got any number of new pages or interactions going on, that those can actually be merged and published publicly sitting there. And the likelihood that someone will actually arrive at them is very, very low if there's no take quiz button or take, certify now button.
Yep, actually, I think that would be a better idea. But yeah, that's one of the main reasons why the PR is there. You can just throw your ideas there, and then we can go through them, and then I will implement that. If anyone else is interested, he can also work with that.
Awesome.
Nice. Maybe just for the other folks that are on, just and in part because this would be part of our next, the way to advance this discussion a bit is there are two Figma design files. I know this is probably kind of small. Even if I zoom in, it's not going to change it. But so one of them is Meshery UI. The other one is Layer5 designs. One of the pages inside the Layer5 designs design file is called learning paths. So these learning paths, when they were originally created, there was sort of the concept was we do this system in multiple phases. First phase, so we'd create the learning paths themselves and multiple of them. Second phase would be what kind of second and third, I think, are in part what Nikhil is highlighting. And there've been some designs that are a good starting point for agreeing that this is what this is the general flow that it should do, or for changing those. Let me just get everybody a link so you can future learn.live. wireframe. Okay, here's a portion of what that future was intended to be. So if you want to take a quiz, you need to sign in so you can persist those results. Prototype. Where? Okay, I guess I'll send this link and I'll look for the rest, because there were other mock-ups about bookmarks. It might be under auth dot. Here, so I think this is the second thing. So I don't know that there were a lot of mock-ups about the actual quiz or but more mock-ups about how to sign in, how you might be able to bookmark certain sections. The bookmarks really, that's not that much of a, I mean, first of all, it's really quite straightforward, but second, it's not the highest priority. It's not that important.
I think Nikhil has already done the bookmarks. I think
Yeah, the bookmark is already in place.
it's already like there.
Nice. Part of that, Nikhil, of what you've done, does that include like when the user is within within a certain chapter, do you have the bookmark button there?
No, actually it's like an auto bookmarking feature. Wait, let me share my screen. I think that would be much more better. Yep. So, for example, assuming there's a person who's first time visiting the learning paths, so he will be able to get to this page, and he gets started with it, and then he's like, okay, so this is the first chapter, and then he goes to the next chapter, and the next chapter, and then let's say he left off at expose services for that day, and then he came back later another day, and he's like, okay, let's go there. Yeah, so when he came back again, so again to the introduction service mesh, so he will be able to see this resume button. I hope it's visible.
Yeah.
Yep. So if you click on that resume button, he will be redirected to the same page. I think it's not great because it's somewhere else. Wait. So it's in there. Yep. So for example, if he came back again, he will be directed to the same page where he left off. I think that one was the hosted link for another one. Yep. So was
Nice.
it understandable, or should
yeah, it is. It is almost too implicit, too nice, maybe, where users like the level, how many clicks it takes people to get to their learning path. This isn't Nikhil's, this isn't your issue, but just the number of layers that it takes people to get down is a hindrance to people really getting into the it also, we would want to make, they wouldn't necessarily know or realize that the bookmarking is happening. We want to make it explicit that they're, I mean, it can happen like that. That's great. But also we want to give them, make it explicit that they know, oh, that bookmarks are happening, and that they can, you know, that their progress is being tracked. Like we might want to show them, like given that you're doing that automatically, one thing to do would be to put a check mark next, instead of where we have the I don't know why it's so terrible, why we had such a hard time, but that chapter menu list on the left, where we've got the vertical line that's off-centered from the bullets, you could change those into check marks as they go, or for the ones that you're tracking. Or if you're just tracking a single page, then fine, maybe you have an arrow indicator that's like, you are here.
Yeah, yep, actually that would be better.
But, and then that way it would be, it wouldn't be so, it's too subtle. Yeah, it wouldn't be so.
Yep, no, actually I think we should do that because we want to make sure that user can also know that his progress is also being tracked. So he can come back later without anybody's like to remember like, oh, I have left it off here. So yep, I think we should do that.
Nice. Well, more to discuss, more to do inside of Figma. So I put the 2 links to the 2 different areas that we were just looking at in there. So this to Aditya's point, much like any of the initiatives that go on, it takes a number of people to see them through. So this is an area of interest for folks. Jump in, put some thought toward the user flow. Ikyo will have to identify a few of those updates to go into the backend and who to engage with or who might engage there. That's good.
That was also impressive. Now I don't know what to talk about. Anyways, there's this one thing I wanted to like just show. Yeah, so there's not much of an update or a change. Basically, like right now you see a lot of zeros over here and not all of our collections are integrated. So I've done that. News and events and everything is integrated now. And like just I wanted a quick review on this because once this gets merged, we can like start sharing our resources, all these, because I wasn't doing that till now because like if someone lands on this page, first the filtering works, but it's not appropriate. Like the articles do not actually point to articles and stuff like that. But now it does. So it's like my PR has 82 files changed, but that's mostly because I have like gone through all the blogs and added types and stuff. So if you give this a quick review, we'll go ahead and merge this and we can start sharing the resources. So right now we have most of these types. I've removed some and these okay, so one thing, which the recorded webinar, which we were talking about, right now I've just added this, like just the YouTube and a little bit of summary. So is this what was desired or?
Yeah, that looks great. So to be clear for everyone else that's looking at the resources, it's kind of turned into, it's sort of unfolded into the place that you could go to find, if from a developer's perspective or from a contributor's perspective, if you're familiar with the Layer5 website, it's from other static sites in which there's more or less like any number of collections of things. There's a collection of events, a collection of blogs, a collection of news, workshops, all the things that you're seeing here. And this is something of the ultimate point of aggregation, where you can browse those various collections. The collections themselves, so if you filter just on events and you were to click on one of those events, the page that you're taken to is the actual events page that you would have otherwise landed on if you navigated to events separately outside of resources. So it really ends up just being a different way of browsing the collections themselves. Now, that's true for the events collection. Like this is just a view or a filter for browsing events, but it's not true for all of the collections. Like, so articles, the first type here, the only place that articles are published is in this resources area. So it's an amalgamation of, or it's an aggregation and an amalgamation of all the collections that we have. Some content is only available through here. Other content is viewable just as it is in other areas. But there's actually a third thing that's going on, and that's the item that Deborah Priya just shared on the recorded webinar. It's like when we recorded the webinar, someone made a blog, or Deborah Priya made a blog post about it, kind of wrote it up and described it, and it was really helpful, really great. And so good, there's a blog post out there, but now there's also a separate item. It's very brief in nature. It says that there's a recorded webinar available and just describes succinctly the fact that there is one. Here's the video. It just kind of gets right to it. Like, here's the presentation and the video. Like, go ahead. It doesn't have the longer blog post write-up, both of which are great. So we kind of have all three things. We sort of have totally original content, the articles collection here. We have unoriginal content, so to speak, that's just linked to. Then we have these things that are kind of in the middle of like, it's, you know, a brief rewrite. And so, yeah, so that leads me to wonder about the FAQs. So we have all these types. We have like 10 different types of content. Just as we were putting together this resources area, we just wrote down the various types of content that we think that we might have. So frequently asked questions is one of those types. It might be that someone wants to put out not really a full blog post, or definitely not a full blog post, not a full article that's, you know, but just some quick factoid that's like that someone bumps into. You know, when I'm running Mesh3 CTL, I'm having trouble with Minikube or whatever. Like, there's a common pitfall that people hit maybe, and so that was the concept for FAQs. Now, right here under resources, it says that we have 0, and that's true in so much as, you know, resources. But like Deborah Priya is showing, on the site in general, we have a set of FAQs. They're categorized, I think, into 4 categories. And they are like that bottom internships one is an example where if you're on the careers page, the internships page, you will see FAQs. You'll only see these 4. You only see that category because it's relevant to that page. I think that that's the only page that we're doing that on. There are other pages like the Mesh3 page where, it would make a lot of sense to have the Mesh3 FAQs on that page, and so on. So I think you see where I'm going with this in a long-winded way. And that is the open question of like, should we? Yeah, so we have 4 categories. Should we have 4 individual FAQ pages that are linked here? You know, in resources, or I guess it's sort of an open question is to like, okay, if those FAQs kind of don't count, should we link those FAQs here? And if we don't, okay, fine. But then do we have an example of what would be an FAQ?
Okay, so one major problem with FAQs, like the reason why I haven't added is the way in which we are representing. Like this entire page, which was dedicated to FAQs, here we have cards. So of course, each card for one FAQ does not make any sense. So like you said, we can group them. Like suppose FAQ and then Mesh3 will probably show us that collection. Like if we go to that card, we can like probably display this itself, like this section. I think these are separate modules or something. We can probably display this itself in that card, probably. And similarly, if we have only FAQs, we show just this, but I'm not so sure how to go about this stuff.
Does anybody have another, like, let's take a counter example to that for a minute. So Subradip, and Yash and Shubham, like, and Leonard, think about this for a minute. And Richa and everybody. Sorry, you get started like saying one name and then you feel like you're leaving out other people, and then it's like, geez. Okay. Well, what if each FAQ was a tiny page? Would that make sense? Boy, it really wouldn't be much on the page. Okay, well, how would it be a full page that's published? Would it be maybe a modal would it be content that shows in a modal maybe? Would it be, would it have secondary filtering? So when you're looking at resources, you have the filters on the left, and then you have pages of, so this page right here that we're on is kind of a good example of a secondary filter. So you might, that page had workshops, meetups, events, something else. Yeah, as a secondary filter. So like, yeah, I don't know. I guess it's an open question. Devapriya has a proposal to take categories of FAQs and make those a page a piece. So we have 4 pages of FAQs today, and then, adding more. And part of, I think, her logic is what I was just saying, which is like, well, geez, 1 page dedicated to a small FAQ, that's kind of, there's not a lot on there. Like
this events page, which I don't like so much. Like, it's just the title, icon, and a button. So initially, like, this is, I think, my PR review. Right now in the main page, there's an empty bullet because it does not even have a speaker. So I've removed that bullet for now. If I show it, it's okay, you don't have to see. But there's an empty bullet. So this looks really empty. Like, the card is attractive, and then you land on this page and there's less information than the card. So I don't think 1 page for an FAQ will make sense. And I also
think it makes more sense to, what Devapriya suggested, to have 4 different cards which have the FAQs inside them, instead of having 1 FAQ on each card.
Or you can think of
That's
other
what you were
ideas,
saying.
but this one will not work according to me.
Okay.
Cool. I am not the decision maker on this. I'm here just trying to help us arrive at the best decision. But by the way, this is, as a side note, as a very relevant side note, this particular page and the way that the event is published, we should, and I can, but we should absolutely include just a snippet about what the event is, and it can be just some very routine phrase. It's like, Layer5 is going to be at this place. You should come hang out and talk to us, and we'll see you there. Whatever. Like, it doesn't have to be super special, especially for this one, but it absolutely should be what Devapriya is saying is true. It can't just be a button.
And the problem is, since most of these are like past events, I think this one is from 2020 or something, these buttons also lead to the not even to our event, some of them. Like, when I was adding the types and all, I noticed that it just takes us to the main page of this event, not even to like us. So we might have to review this a little bit. Not all of them, like some of them do have, most of them have description, but like only this much is also enough, like at least just what the event is about, but not completely.
Totally. I'll take a note on that one.
And also, I saw filter for tutorials. I think we can do the same thing for tutorials, right? Because we have that tutorials table where there are slides and recordings. So we can create cards for them. Like you can create an issue and somebody can do that. Right.
This
Like
one?
the tutorials, because we do have tutorials, right? Like for like Aditya gave one, like for Jekyll, then we have for Cypress tests and stuff, so that we can make cards. Just add a small description and then we can put the video in an iframe and also have the slides on there maybe.
Yeah. So, any other suggestions about what we just talked about?
Aditya, if that suggestion goes forward, we someone on the call might be able to pick that up. So you might.
There are tutorials here as well on the Newcomers page. Okay, yeah, this gives a table. So yeah,
These were the ones I was talking about. Like we can just represent these on the cards.
yep, makes sense. And I think we have some others as well, like recently the ones on Newcomers call, I think one Navindu took and stuff, others, one Husseina took.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're not-
Hussaina took one on like Git, and then Navendu took one on how to set up Meshery. So yeah, we could not do those also, but like since we already have a list maintained here, we can first move forward with this. If anyone on the call wants to pick it up, you can just say.
Yeah, I can do that.
I think Yash already took it. Just confirm with Yash one.
It's not the one thing that's left. One of you can take up FAQs if you want. Just choose, talk amongst yourself, make issues. Whoever gets assigned first.
All right.
By the way, a question. So the data for FAQs and the data for those tutorials, for the FAQs, it's in JSON, I think, or it's in a React array, which means that it's programmatically iteratable, or rather the FAQs are easy enough to go grab, to import and then display on the page. Like the data structure is there already. It's easy. It's a straightforward enough, assignment. For the tutorials though, that are in the just an HTML table, would that be, would we go to a full-blown collection and a dedicated, thing, or would there be an intermediary, just like, again, a JSON or a React array, or like, so that's something to, so as Yash, I think, digs into the tutorials, that's something to figure out. Like a collection is probably super cheap, like, is a lot more powerful than, by collection, maybe like, I just mean like a collection of individual markdown files, like one file dedicated to each tutorial, which, by the way, if we're going to be showing off those tutorials, we're going to have to get some much better tutorials going on. They're pretty decent, but for a lot of people, it's like the first time that they've ever presented ever. And it's really painfully obvious that that's the case. So we might want to ask them to come back and be like, hey, you've improved since then. Why don't you, do another one? So, but joking aside, yeah, that's a great suggestion too. We do have one interview so far. It's with one of the Meshery maintainers. He was interviewed by Shriti. I had to practice it for like a year and a half. Anyway, there's a specific, it's not Shriti, it's not Anyway, it's like, it's every time I'd ask her to enunciate it for me, she'd just laugh. She'd just start laughing and then she wouldn't say it. And then I'm like, well, shit, well, anyway. Yash tutorials, Aditya, Subedi, FAQs, I think. Nice.
Okay, so next we have Yash's topic. Yash, do you want to present?
Yeah, let me share this screen. Is my screen visible?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I made the search feature for the blog page, which is one of the oldest issue open. It works perfect, fine if we ignore the CSS. Just one thing that bugs me is that pagination. The way it works, it takes us to a different URL. So it works for the list on the page only, not the whole list. So I think we should change the way the pagination works in the page, in the blog. Yeah. And some other things to notice.
Oh, the search. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So wait, I think I didn't understand this properly. You're saying that the search only searches through the 8 or 10 cards that are.
Yeah. Because the pagination looks to another page. Not sure about this, but I think that it's not the case. Also, we should also change how the pagination works. It takes us to a different URL. Does it make sense?
Kind of. I think there's two. Yeah. So when a user, all right. So Yash is working on implementing search for, well, for the blogs, good, but then potentially, if successful here, for other collections or just a general search across the site, maybe. And commonly, the way that this is achieved is through use of something like Lucene or some Lucene spinoff, which is just that as your site is being statically built, part of that would be to run an indexing engine to identify what words are on what page and in what quantity. Basically, like do a map reduce in some sense. But anyway, to have that statically completed, and then to have a plugin to look through that index file for keywords. And so then from a user experience perspective, hopefully there's kind of two things that would happen, maybe three. One would be that in a very basic sense, if someone typed in a search term and hit enter, they would be shown the search results page, sort of the generic page that says, here's all the hits, here's all the links that have keyword hits for what you typed in. Okay. That takes us back a couple of decades in terms of experience, but like people understand that. I mean, people still do that today on Google, but anyway, they've gotten really accustomed to type ahead search, which is sort of a second phase of the UX that can be done, which is you're typing out your term. And as you're doing that, in a drop down below, you're starting to see some results like links to pages that match. And then without hitting enter, you might just say, oh yeah, that's the one. And you go click it and you're directed directly to your result, the single result that you wanted. Great. The third UX that could potentially happen is, let's say that you're sitting on the blog page. So you want to search through the hundreds of blogs that are there, and that you sort of treat the search as, as you're doing the live type ahead, great. But you could also then be doing a live filter, which is to say that, like, as you start to type it out, if the term that you're typing in doesn't meet the fall interns of 2021, it goes away. Like, only basically you start to see your actual search results as a live filter as well. So Yash, I think all of those, or any one of those, or all three of those user experiences is beneficial, is helpful, is nice.
So
Basically, coming to what Yash was saying is, so he's not being able to filter because the way we are doing pagination on the blogs is that it goes to a separate page. Yeah, so it goes to a separate page. So that's why he's only being able to filter on the number of cards that are on the page. So a blog is basically a collection, right? So you should be able to, tackle it by filtering on the entire collection. That's one way to approach it. Second way to approaching is that the resources page, as far as I remember, the pagination happens on the same page. The URL does not change. So you can implement that on blogs. I think that might even be a better user experience to have you on the same page and but have it paginate. So you can try implementing that. That might be an easier way than filtering on the entire collection.
that's what I was suggesting, that change the pagination to the way in the resources.
Yeah. Okay, we can do that.
I think I misunderstood he asked it to me personally.
Yeah,
About the categories URL.
yeah. I asked about that also, but I came into my senses and thought that having categories to a different page would increase the SEO. I was talking about that only. Yeah.
So the categories one is required, but yeah, we can let go of the 1, 2, 3, 4 and stuff like that.
Okay, SEO wise, probably having the 1, 2, 3, 4 increases our SEO as far as that. Because the more number of pages we have, the better the SEO is. So from an SEO standpoint, if we remove that, our SEO will fall. Well, just by a little, but it will fall.
So should we change the pagination, how the pagination work out different way?
One of the issues with the way that we're paginating today is, speaking of SEO, is like if we're doing layer5io/blog/2, the 2 just is totally non-informative to what the actual type of content is, and the fact that like now there may not be anything more for us to do. Actually, it's probably a bad note on my part. Like, I don't know that there would be anything more intelligent to do. But actually, I fail to see why it is that pagination has anything to do with searching. So I don't like to me, it sounds like if pagination is affecting search, it's like, well, we're probably doing search the wrong way. So Yash, are you using, what are you using? What plugin are you using for the search now?
I'm, I think, only using the simple filter.
Wait, I couldn't hear. Can you?
Simple dot filter.
Dot filter.
Yeah.
But here it would be affecting the filter, right? Because they are on separate pages, like the URL is changing. Like the other approach that I said was to filter on the entire collection. That would not be affected by the the URL. But if you're filtering on a page and if the other content is on another page, how would you search that, right?
But yeah, yeah, right. Well, you don't search the page. Don't search the page or search the other.
What you were saying is we can do it globally, like search through the entire thing. Is what I'm saying.
Oh, okay. We're saying the same thing. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So Yash, maybe I should say this, that hey, here are, so you're going after a filter, not a search, I think. And maybe that's where we've got our misalignment in terms of filter's good. And then yeah.
If you want to search in the same page only, I think filter would work fine. Or it can,
Yeah, maybe, yeah, but maybe we can, but like, really, how many, if you take a look at the page now, the 2-column page, is it like 9 posts that we show, or 12 or 6? It's like, that's not really the use case. And I get that, like, you're trying to do a anyway, here's the use cases. Let's get off of filter and onto search. And let's start by identifying what plugin we think we would want to use, which I think is called out in the issue that's there. And that's how we want to approach it. We want to like use solar, lunar, Lucene, something.
it's JS search in the issue written.
Cool. It is, you are almost not audible. I don't know that it's probably both a volume thing and
Yeah, I'm speaking really slowly, I think, yeah.
so JS search is the one that you're gonna dig into.
Okay, I will do it.
Oh, okay.
I will use it.
Anyone have an opinion, just while we're talking about these plugins, does JS search seem like the right one? There are 2. So Gatsby, I guess, has a built-in JS search library, a built-in feature for this called JS search. And so maybe if that's what they're promoting, then maybe we would lean in, like Yash, like you said, maybe we'll lean into that one and try to get that one going.
Okay, I will implement the JS search. Just the filter was pretty easy. Yeah, so I thought that if filter works, so I take it to the next level.
Cool. Yeah, I think if you had it done today, then like if it was actually truly easy and you were done, then we probably would. But since you're not done because you're hitting another issue, it's like it's not really the goal anyway. So yeah. I wonder if there's an example of the UX for what this might look like. Have you seen this in action?
I think I tried it. Yeah.
Oh man, Josh, they don't have your book listed here. I don't know what's going on. Cool. I mean, or I guess this is, I don't, do you, Yasha, you probably don't know at this point, but I wonder if JS search comes with this front end experience as well.
Yeah. In the demo that they have on the page, they have this.
Okay. Oh, gotcha. Anybody else have comment on? Is Meshmate Lada on? Nikhil, do you recall last time that we started to dig into search? Tanuj bumped his head on something. I don't know what it was.
It was Elasticsearch, if I'm not wrong, but there were some issues. Can't recall exactly what's it, but I guess the research was mostly added on the issue itself. Like the issue should be the resource of the whatever the research is for the search plugin.
Okay, so talking about blog, we recently changed the list view layout. But one problem, like I think when we are normally on the first homepage for the blog, that was fixed by increasing the number of posts. But right now this creates, like when you filter, the list of tags is so huge that it gives a lot of white space. So I'm not, should we like change this to spread across this entire thing or increase? Like we cannot increase this number because this is basically the categories. So I think we have to do something about this because this is too much of a blank space. Earlier, since the images were huge, this wasn't a big deal. Like 2 images used to cover it, but now it's not.
But Phil, yeah, Nikhil, go ahead.
I guess I was going to say the same thing which Aditya is saying. Like having a collapsible view would be a better in general for both the cases, like we have for resources page. Even without filtering, it should be collapsed. There should be a down arrow when it's not collapsed. When it's collapsed, sorry.
Yeah.
And when it's open, it switches. That would help.
Makes sense because it's eventually this will increase even more. So yeah. Okay.
Except it kind of addresses the symptom, not the root problem. What's the root problem? Not enough blog posts. Do we want more blog posts? Yeah, so we should go. I don't know. Anyway, I would suggest that that I know it's kind of a joke actually, but that we probably do focus our time on other things, and hopefully in the meantime fill in get the blog posts going so that hopefully because it's a matter of time. Like if we advance the calendar a year from now, should we have, generally speaking, so long as people who are writing the posts don't go nuts with 50 tags per post, we would expect that we have more posts than we do tags. And so at some point it's just we would if you put an effort into fixing this symptom and have an expandable tag thing, hopefully it would never be used, because hopefully we always have, however many blog posts per category. I don't know. It's just not, we should do other things like put time into the thing that Nikhil is working on.
Yep. Okay, so we are right on time, but Aditya, do you have any updates on this? Quick updates on the compatibility matrix?
There's not a much I have I just want to show one thing, that is just the one with the stable version. Is my screen visible?
Yeah, Aditya, you got it. It's just, somebody want to tell him, because it's going to get expensive quick.
So there's a $2 fine every time you ask that. I've been counting the number of times.
All right. All right. No, I just wanted to check which screen is it showing.
Oh man, that's $4 on just this call.
No, the last time I shared, I was showing the website and it was showing VS Code.
Oh, this is so much fun.
Let's get up.
Okay, good. Right. So yeah, so this is my progress. I have done all this now. For the stable version, the compatibility matrix shows the edge as well as the stable version. So how I configured is that if the latest edge, if the latest update is the edge, this will show it. But if the latest one is stable version, the edge component will not show, and only the stable version will show. So is that desired, or do we show the edge also if there is a latest release?
Yeah, I think you're doing kind of something. Well, other people can chime in. I don't always mean to be the, but the thing that Mr. Sharma had done with the bookmarks, it was too delightful, too subtle. I think you'll find people will be like, oh, what? There's no edge release for such and such, but there's a stable. What? It would take. I think they would get confused before and then they realize oh, this thing is actually more intelligent than, and it's a shame that we have to write software for the rest of us dummies. Yeah, it might be too. Now, the thing that something I think if you did want to spend more time and take this a step further, you could do something like a top level. Right now you have columns. You could put a top level table nav or table filter, like global filter that's like show only stable, show only edge. And then it becomes obvious to people that there's like basically two sets of info for each individual component. I guess what I'm trying to say is there's other ways for you to arrive at a delightful experience, but that's more explicit. So people aren't wondering what the heck happened to the edge release for.
So my thought process was that when we have a release, I thought that the edge was like overseeded with the stable version, and then after the release, then comes the edge. So that was my thought process of keeping the stable version and removing edge.
Yeah, actually, it's a great thought, because we're right with what we're doing right here. We're bringing a little bit of things that we're kind of conflating. We're bringing together two areas that people are accustomed to having separate. People are accustomed to, if they're having totally separately published like unit and integration test results from builds that were done in a continuous integration system, that's like, man, if you're a user, that's like, I don't know, does the thing work or not? Or like, do I see the feature or not? Like, all that other, nonsense. Like, yeah, then you get power users that over time, like start to get into, so we're kind of, we're bringing a lot of that front and center into people's faces. And to Aditya's point of like, if this is intended to be primarily user facing documentation, and that's what this site is, then, aren't they generally going to care about stable over edge? And so to Aditya's point, Aditya, if you consider, okay, so holding that thought in mind, will you navigate to the adapt under concepts in the left-hand menu? If you navigate to like adapters, or so you're here, you're a user, you're like, oh, wow, this thing manages all these. Okay. And then you see I didn't even know this, but you see the stable column, or the column called adapter status.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, maybe there's an opportunity to expose more user-facing things to say, like, I guess like what I'm saying is like, yeah, part of that, there isn't a top level link to the compatibility matrix, to the thing that you're working on right now.
Yes.
There's one significant, it's not because it's insignificant, that info. The biggest reason is because right now it's a misnomer. That page that the integration tests are being published on, it's called compatibility matrix, but it actually hasn't published a compatibility matrix. All it's done is publish integration tests. After it's from the integration test data, we could then build a compatibility matrix saying, yes, Meshery version such and such is compatible with Kubernetes version such and such. It's from that data so we're kind of on a journey to getting there. And so that's why the page isn't exposed top level, because it's kind of contributor details. So keep thinking about that same thought that you have. Like, you can begin to expose that data in other places. If you go to any given service, if you go back to the adapters page real quick and you click on one of the adapter links, it should take you to the page for that. Okay, so here, so see that stable link?
Yeah.
Okay,
Stable.
so does that take you to GitHub, or what is that?
Yeah, it takes me to GitHub.
Okay, that's fine to have a link to GitHub, but now that we've got integration tests and we're like, so think about it, if you will, how some of the data that you're working with might get exposed, or
Yeah. Okay. So like what? Okay, I'll contact you in the Slack for more information.
yeah, what else? But yeah, the current goal of that integration test page is to have each Meshery component listed, understand that, yes, there are 2 release channels for each component, stable and edge, that, yeah, generally people Okay, and that beyond that, optimizing beyond that, probably we don't want to do. It would just be, we want to show the latest edge and the latest stable for each component.
All right. So for suppose for traffic mesh, I should show the edge version also, like the latest edge.
Because it's yeah. Because what happens is there's two release channels. So a user might be using stable software, or they might be using edge. And so that, I don't know how, but yeah, you do want to show both.
Yeah, all right. That needs a little bit of more workaround, but I think, yeah, I'll try. Right. Oh yeah.
Just a last minute question. So, what is the next step for that learning path quickly? Like, are you planning to have any backend data or so? I think we have already discussed, but I kind of messed it up. So, short would be.
Yeah,
Just,
yeah. So, Nikhil Sharma had shown some progress toward the front end. And so some of the, Nikhil, do you want to talk about some of the next steps that were discussed?
Actually, I think first we should focus more on the backend side, because we can complete the front end. It's not being much of an issue. I can do that by next week, but I think we should mainly focus on backend for now. So we can fetch, like all those functionalities like user authentication, validation, and question pulling and all those. So I think the main focus should be backend for now, which I can take the initiative, and I would love to work on it.
So there's nice. Yeah, there's a couple of database tables to be designed. Meshery Cloud as a remote provider has four, it has the identity, the social authentication, the identity providers that are there. It has those secure mechanisms. What it doesn't have is for marks, or which place for if someone took a test, or how many attempts they did, or what their score was, or if their certificate has been issued, and so that Meshery Cloud itself is, well, Mr. Sharma has worked on it, and yeah, and so Lara, did the two Nikhils want to have maybe do some collaboration? Can I have a stab at what the back end might look like?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yes, from my side.
yeah, we will discuss it and see how we could progress. Apart from that, another thing was that scenario for sending out a message to the newcomer after 2 weeks. I've checked it out and it is working. Like, we could set it up. There is not an issue for that. We could connect it with the existing Google Sheet that we have, and it would filter it out based on the next 2 weeks. It would send a message. So just the doubt was, what message should we be sending? So I've sent you on. You can we could take it offline, and you can send me the mock-up on the Slack as well. So yeah, just an update on that.
That's great. Devapriya, does everyone know what Nikhil just said? Okay, good. Yeah, can you brainstorm, if you all would, about what you think would be a great message to send a newcomer that's joined Slack after a couple of weeks? What else we might want to send them? So, or after a week, or whatever it is.
Sure. Like, we could, like, what, as per the previous details, I think it was about sending a book link that we have the free book download. But since we are almost covering all the topics in the initial message, so I guess that's the, or even I think we are also covering the service mesh labs as well. If not, then we can point it out to service mesh labs or the learning paths as well.
So, and yep, to your point, maybe we're trying to tell people too much in the first message. Maybe we should pull out a couple, like the labs or the book or what have you, and have two messages that are palatable, that don't overwhelm.
Yeah,
You know.
we can do that. We could even break it into 3, like every 2 weeks for 1 month. The person could get a message.
I think that will be better because, like, as newcomers, they'll probably not go through the entire list if we send it to them in the first go itself. So breaking it down will be better. So I'll think about what else we can add. Yeah. So I think we missed one topic by Shubham, but we are over time. Shubham, do you mind bringing this up in the next call?
Yeah, sure. No problem.
Okay. So yeah, I think we're done for today. Thank you guys for joining. I feel like we had a very productive call. So feels happy. Thank you for joining.
Bye bye.
Bye all.
Oh, thank
Bye.
you.
Bye
Everyone.